Hi all, I have an interesting game to show you from the Altibox Norway tournament 2017. This is between June the 5th and 17th of 2017, so it's only just started relative to this video. The average rating is nearly 2800, so it makes it one of the strongest tournaments in recent years. So the players: Magnus Carlsen, Wesley So, Caruana, Kramnik, Vaclav Legrave, and Maxim Vaclav, Nakamura, Anand, Aronian, Karyakin, and Giri. Let's have a look at the Nakamura against Giri game. So this kicked off with d4. So this is in round 1, d4 from Nakamura. We have knight f6, c4, g6. So this is a Gruenfeld, and usually white takes on d5 here. What was chosen was the 4th most popular move in live, but this bishop g5. This is subject to a tempo gain. I played this actually against IM once at the London Classic. It didn't do so well, so I'm quite curious theoretically about this game, because it seems, first of all, I don't think it's that great to take this knight. It's kind of equal. This position is fairly pleasant for black, it seems. White's not getting much here. Some games from this position with knight e5, for example, knight c3, and it's thought to be about equal. So I was curious of Nakamura's treatment. He drops the bishop back, takes, and black's idea is actually to be a bit greedy here, to actually take this c4. It's kind of annoying actually, because there's bishop e6 and potentially queen d5, and that bears down on g2. We have e3, bishop e6. Now the move chosen is queen b1. This has been seen before. You'll note though that this is not actually, it's a bit of a gambit, as well. If it takes bishop d5, bearing down on g2. But so in fact, well, usually players with black play queen d5 here anyway to protect that. For example, knight f3, bishop g7. This disposition has seen a few games, handful of games, but we see in this game the alternative b6. Maybe it's even possible to play knight d7 or c5. I mean, if taking here, then we have bishop d5, and this position has been seen a few times, and it seems to be about equal. So it's intriguing anyway. b6 is played. Now knight h3, this has been seen before, threatening knight f4. That stopped with bishop h6. I know it looks weird, but it's been seen before, this stuff. Bishop g5, that's taken, and now queen d5, and now white takes on e6. And usually here, seen before, is queen b5 check in about 4 key games. So we have a slight innovation at move 13 now. Queen b4, queen d5. So if bishop takes, then there's queen takes on g2. So white takes off the queens, and is it going to be another draw? Queen's coming off. Let's see. So white has a small advantage theoretically. a4. He wants to try and cause some fragmenting of black's pawns, or trying to invade somehow with his rooks. Now he's connecting his rooks without castling. Now he's putting pressure on that b file, doubling rooks, and preparing now for c4. We have now in this position f3, and now c4 here. Takes on b5, actually not taking on d4 here, but winning that pawn instead. Yeah, let's see for a moment. If white just takes on d4, maybe black, it seems this is okay, absolutely okay for black. It should be okay anyway. c5, yeah, it seems pretty level. So we have c takes, okay, giving black an option to take here, but he doesn't take there. He takes on b5. Now he takes on e3. So it seems like a minuscule advantage to some people, maybe. Can Nakamura do anything with this? Check. King d4. And now rook b8. We have now rook d7. Now rook c8. rook b7, a6. Maybe rook b7. Yeah, it's starting to be a difficult position actually. This seems to be a nice tempo gain for white with an advantage now of technically, you know, a more significant advantage than before. So, but it's actually difficult to suggest what black does here. He does seem a bit worse. Okay, so anyway, a6, rook b4. We have the unpinning move. Now king b3, knight d7, and now here, yeah, it's getting a bit tricky. Bishop b5 was played. Some tempo gains. Pinning, check, 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 and Nakamura doesn't repeat. He plays king a4. He doesn't go back to a5. Check, check, and now he goes to c4. So he's trying for a win. He's avoiding any repetitions. And now the king comes back here. Now, yeah, it's fatal, I think, if check here, we just play this. So yeah, there's no more checks in this position like that. So the rook goes back. So the king's being kicked back. And it goes forward now to d4 though. And now white positionally is threatening something like h4. And at some point to take on d7 and get into black's position with king e5. Now here, this sets a little trap in a way. Rook h8 is not played because knight f8 kind of traps the rook, literally. A trap of trapping the rook. So we see rook a8. And there is a threat here of bishop takes simply and invading with the king. We have king d6. h4 fixing the pawns. Very useful to fix those pawns. And now we have a transition. This move king e7 maybe is a mistake actually. It seems knight b6 might be more stubborn. For example, if here, what is the threat? Maybe black can hold on a bit. You know, rook e7. What is white doing? So it seems, yeah, knight b6 might be an interesting try. But hang on, let's see. Rook d8 check. There's some harassment with the checks here, and maybe something like h5. Maybe this is what Giri's really worried about. This a structural kind of minority attack style, trying to break the structure, weaken the structure fundamentally, even at the cost of a pawn. Say this position, it starts to get a bit tricky. Maybe the rook can end up like here potentially, or even just taking on. Let's see, check. Like taking here is sometimes possible. You know, so there's various possibilities actually, but yeah. So king e7 does allow this transition though to this rook and pawn ending. And I was only talking about rook and pawn endings last night on the Tuesday radio show. And one Tarrasch rule is that rooks need to be behind pawns. At the moment you see the rooks in front of the passed pawn. So the Tarrasch rule is trying to get the rooks behind pawns, except when it's not the best idea basically. So rook b7 here now threatens a winning transition to a king and pawn ending with rook takes. So say this position, actually we can just play here there in that position. That's totally winning, forcing the rooks and off to queen the pawn. So what does black do in this position? Well, so king f7 is not playable. He played actually check here, king d4. Now we have the defensive posture of the rook behind the pawn. White really wants to swap this arrangement around, so I think it's a bit instructive now. He does win that pawn, so how can white get the rook behind the pawn? We see f4, king c4. First of all, he tries to get rid of the opponent's rook behind the pawn, and here you might think, hang on, is rook takes possible? In that case, white can just take here, and a7, yeah, that's clear enough because the king's herding the pawn there, and sort of ending up maybe like this to shield any checks. So that's going to be hopeless. So basically, that is not chosen. Rook takes g2 is not chosen. Instead, we have h5 from Giri. Rook a8. So how do we get this rook behind the pawn? Check. Rook check. 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 Now king a7 to stop the checks again. This is the second time in the game Nakamura's had to avoid a sequence of checks. But here, it becomes evident that maybe this is the way to get the rook behind the pawn. Black does take that. That gives white now a bit of time. Rook b8. Now he plays this check, and you can see he's getting the rook behind the pawn now. Giri takes another pawn. So it's this loss of material, though, that affords this Tarrasch rule of 2 pawns there to get the Tarrasch rule of the rook behind the pawn. So now the threat is actually queening and rook a6. Rook a3, rook a6, and that's it now. King c6. And, okay, black resigned here. You might think, well, he's got his own pass pawn. It's of no significance, actually, because white's queening first. Let's have a look. In this position, well, I think anything wins. Maybe even rook a1. Yeah, anything wins, basically. Quickest might be this. And then just mate the black king. For example, like this. Okay, so yeah, an interesting round 1 game there. Nakamura fiercely determined to win this game. You can see he was avoiding all the checks. So the final position, he had several points where, yeah, he didn't want to draw. He avoided all the checks, and he managed to grind Giri down in this endgame. So an impressive win, I think, from Nakamura. I hope you got something out of it. Comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks very much.